Hey everybody, it's Shawn from Techbabblers, and today we're going to be taking an in-depth look at the Samsung Galaxy S5. We know you've all been waiting to hear our take on the device, so let's jump right into it. First, let's talk about specs. The Samsung Galaxy S5 has an octa-core Exynos processor from Samsung, clocked in at 2.1 GHz. It also has 2 gigs of RAM, and comes in 16 or 32 gig variant, expandable via micro SD. The Samsung Galaxy S5 also has a 5.1-inch Super AMOLED display with a resolution of 1920 by 1080. It also has a 16-megapixel rear-facing camera, capable of shooting video in 4K, and also has a front-facing 2.0 megapixel camera for all of you that like to take selfies. After talking about specs, we're going to take a look around the device. On the right side, we have our power button. On our bottom, we have a flap which covers the USB 3.0 port. On the left side, we have our volume rocker. On the top, we have our IR sensor along with 3.5mm headphone jack. Like I stated, on the back, we have our 16-megapixel rear-facing camera with LED flash. And on the front, we have our 2-megapixel front-facing camera along with our home button, our back button, and our multitasking button. If any of you actually did have the Samsung Galaxy S4 and upgraded to the Samsung Galaxy S5, or are planning to, you'll realize that on the bottom, the multitasking button, which is on the left side, replaces the menu button that was seen in the Samsung Galaxy S4. So, as it sounds, the multitasking button, when you press on it, it brings up all the currently opened apps which you can switch between or choose to force close. If you would like to access settings or the menus, you would have to hold down on the multitasking button to open it up. Another big change is with the home button. In previous Galaxy devices, the home button was simply just a home button which you would press to unlock. In this case now, there's a new feature in which it basically mimics Touch ID from the Apple iPhone 5S, but in this case you don't press down, you have to actually take your finger and swipe down. For some people it may not sound too bad, but in everyday usage you tend to see that it takes around 3 to 4 swipes to actually unlock the device, and then there are other moments where it just won't unlock at all, and you'd have to enter your alternative password to sign in. It's not to say that it's not necessarily a good feature, but it still needs refinement, which I'm hoping can be updated in future software updates from Samsung. Along with the software, we have the latest version of TouchWiz, and if you guys noticed, on the furthest left screen we have a new feature called My Magazine, in which it basically pulls down all your latest news and entertainment gossip, depending on how you have it set. While it may be seen as a nice feature, there are actually a lot of other alternatives for those of you that don't have Samsung Galaxy devices to get. If you have a HTC One M7 or M8, you may know the feature as Blink Feed, or a lot of people use Flipboard to pull down a lot of news and gossip, but it's basically the same idea. There's also, software-wise, a new feature called S-Health, in which it's basically what it sounds like. It's for your health. So when you open up S-Health, there's a bunch of new features that are also included in the Samsung Galaxy S5 that are things such as heart rate and pedometer. So to use the heart rate, if we take a look at the back of the device, you'll see next to the LED flash there are these 2 little buttons. You basically press on the heart rate, and you'll see on the back that the lights start to blink red. And you just do what the screen tells you. You take any finger, but mostly people would use their index finger. You place it on the light, you hold the device very steady, and after about a minute it reads your heart rate. But one big gripe about it, at least in my opinion, is it doesn't seem accurate. If we take a look at my results, you see that the heart rate results basically fluctuate. I'm assuming with big increases and decreases in heart rate, I would assume that that would mean that I would be close to dying or, you know, have some kind of health issue, which I don't. When we take a look at TouchWiz and we pull down from the notification drawer, we see that there are a lot of settings that Samsung's added, such as power saver mode, ultra power saver mode, enabling, disabling Wi-Fi, vibrate, screen rotation, Bluetooth, you name it, they got it. But one of the big issues with me is that all these settings seem to just confuse people, as if you were to think about it, why would someone need an ultra power saver mode and a power saver mode? I mean, when you activate them, you can tell the differences, but I feel like an average person would get confused, as also when you go into the settings menu, there are a lot of settings there, which seem very confusing, because if you're looking for something as simple as about the device to update the device, you have to literally scroll down for a while. And I remember the first time I booted up the device and I jumped into settings, I was like, wow, that's a lot, because it doesn't even look like a settings menu. It actually looks like its own little operating system, which can throw a lot of people off, especially if they're trying to change something, you know, very quickly to maybe save battery life, or they don't want this feature enabled. But I mean, after playing around with the device, you can definitely find your way. Another thing that many people take a hit on is the back of the device. When Samsung unveiled the device, it was seen to be very dimply on the back, where it has these marks that a lot of people said made it look like a golf ball or a band-aid. In my opinion, while it does make it look like a golf ball, it doesn't look that bad, and it's, in my opinion, is actually there to serve a purpose. If many of you have the Samsung Galaxy S4, you know how, I guess, slippery it can get. And with this new design, it's actually very soft and it has grip to it. No matter how oily your hands can get or how much you pull it in or out of your pocket, it won't get any softer and it won't slide out of your hand, and that should be a good thing, because if many of you have the S4 or the HTC One M8, you all know how slippery those devices are, and the last thing we want to do is drop our device and break it just after we got it and spent a good amount of money on it. Another positive thing about the Samsung Galaxy S5 is the fact that it's IP67, which means it's both dustproof and waterproof. If we look around the device, especially on the bottom, you see that there's a flap that covers the USB port. That's to help it be waterproof, and if we open the back, you see that around the device cover there's a ring, which basically helps to seal the device from water. Now, this device isn't meant to go into the water and stay in there for hours, but if you were to drop it in the water or get caught in the rain, you don't have to worry. When we talk about the camera, it's 16 megapixel, and Samsung is usually known for adding a lot of features to the camera app. So when you open up the camera app and you scroll through the settings, there are a lot of settings, and one new thing that they added is under video mode, Ultra HD. If those of you that don't know, what that basically means is this camera is capable of shooting video in 4K. Now, while that might be a good thing, I want to just let you all know that it does take up a lot of space, but it does shoot in 4K, which many to no devices can actually do at the moment. But when we talk about the camera, now this camera rocks. It's a 60 megapixel camera, and while it may not be a Lumia 1020, it does take great shots. As we can see, in low lighting, it does just fine, and with plenty of lighting, it does even better. And it does have a lot of detail, and even for videos, you can make do with this device. It's by far one of the best cameras I've used in a long time, and that's one thing about Samsung Galaxy devices that I enjoy in general, is the fact that they always seem to push the camera to the furthest it can go. Now, when we talk about the battery, it does have a 2800 milliamp hour battery, but in my opinion, it's not as great as it sounds. I've been using this device for about a week, and at least in my opinion, I can barely get through a day. Now, I don't know if it's the device that I have myself, or maybe it's what I'm doing, but I keep the brightness on auto. I don't have any email accounts currently linked up to the device. I usually listen to music for about an hour or two a day. I barely play any games, and around halfway through the day, my battery would drop about 50%. I went and I turned off NFC, turned off Bluetooth, turned off Wi-Fi. You name it, I turned it off, but the battery still seems to go down. I even went as far as to set the device into ultra power saving mode, which, if many of you don't know, basically means that the device goes into a black screen and only a few selected apps can work. So things like web browsing, phone calling, and a messaging app, which would consume battery, that didn't even seem to help me that much, as even in ultra power saving mode I managed to go down 5% in half an hour, and that includes turning off the brightness completely. So once again, I'm not sure if it's my device or my battery, but at least from where I'm coming from, I don't really think 2800 milliamp is good enough for me. But one good thing about the device is the battery is removable, as the back can just snap out. So if you are looking to get the device, I would probably recommend getting if you can, either a bigger battery from places like eBay or Amazon, or just getting a second battery and carrying it around with you if you do use it a lot, as that might come in handy for you. Overall, while the Samsung Galaxy S5 is nice and does add some new improvements upon the Samsung Galaxy S4, I don't really think it's justified to upgrade if you have a Samsung Galaxy S4, as the two main improvements are the fingerprint sensor, which doesn't work that great, and the heart rate sensor, which, when it does seem helpful, you don't really need it in an everyday usage. If you have a Samsung Galaxy S4, I'd suggest you just stay on it, as it just adds a few improvements software-wise that you can easily get when an update comes around for KitKat for you. Samsung has added a lot of features, which means they did take, people into mind when creating these features, but it just seems like it's a little too much for your average consumer, as they would probably get lost with all the features, as even someone like me who loves to deal with technology was kind of confused with half the features that are in there. But it's nice to see that Samsung continues to push forward and add a lot of features and new enhancements to keep devices fresh. Well, that was it for our look of the Galaxy S5. If you guys liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. You can also follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/techbabblers or on our website at techbabblers.com. You can follow me, Shawn, on Twitter at Shawn_Shakir. And this was the review of the Samsung Galaxy S5. If you guys liked it, please give it a thumbs up and leave comments down below. And thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.